Hey everyone, it's September 1st, and that can only mean one thing here on Minutia Minute. That's right. It is time for the Modern Age History of Batman, part 1 of 30. So I hope you guys are excited. I hope you guys enjoy this video, because there's a lot more of them to come. So, the modern age started at different times for different superheroes. Generally, it's considered, that Crisis on Infinite Earths is when things really changed over for comic books at large. During the modern age, you saw an expansion of independent comic books. You saw a lot more experimentation going on in comic books. You saw a lot more of an adult take on comic books and reinventions of characters, things like that. And for some characters, the modern age is less clear than others. However, with Batman, there's really one particular issue that you can really pinpoint as, yes, in terms of the Batman ongoing series, this is when the gears shifted. This is when the modern age began. And that is, of course, with Batman Year One in Batman number 404. Now, the thing that makes these books great is really academic, and I can't say anything that hasn't been said, I'm sure, about these books. You've got Frank Miller doing Batman as basically just a guy in a suit. One of the things that I think is really revealing about Year One is Frank Miller has been quoted as basically saying, like, his favorite interpretation of Batman on the movie screen is the serials, the old Columbia serials, and that really comes through in Batman Year One, because basically you've just got a guy in a cape doing a lot of hard work, and that's exactly what Frank Miller likes about those serial versions. He doesn't have a lot of flair, he doesn't have a lot of polish, doesn't have the gadgets, it's just this guy working really, really hard. But the thing that really makes Year One shine is the story of James Gordon, who is really the main protagonist of Year One. One of the most unused territory in comics today, in my opinion, is really exploring the people around the superheroes. Like, the superhero doesn't necessarily need to be the main character. He can just be a foil for the main character, and that's what Jim Gordon is here. And whenever they do that, if they really think it out well, it turns out very, very, very good. You look at Gotham Central as a great example of that, and I wish they would do more stuff like that in comics today, where, if you had a Superman comic that was just about the people at the Daily Planet, and Superman is just kind of, a plot point that appears along the way, I think that Superman could be an excellent comic book that way. And, there's lots of other examples too, but few of them have captured that as successfully as Batman Year One. Now, it's very important to mention, of course, that with Batman Year One, you have David Mazzucchelli on art, and he does just a phenomenal job. If you like Francisco Francaveli, I think that you would definitely enjoy Mazzucchelli's artwork on this. It's just very, very almost pulpy, but in a very fresh way, in a very modern way. And again, like, no comic book, brought in the modern age better than the Batman series with Batman issues 404 through 407. You've got all of the things present. You've got sort of an independent sensibility. You've got risk-taking. You've got adult themes with, Gordon and his wife who's pregnant and he's cheating on her. Just all this little minutia that adds up to a really, really solid comic book, and one of the best comic books that Frank Miller really has ever written, in part just because Frank Miller has a very specific voice, and, with the way he writes Batman, it gets imitated a lot. Batman Detective Comics right now with Tony Daniel, like, you hear the phrase more often than not, it sounds like bad Frank Miller. And Year One, while it does have a lot of the Frank Miller tropes, is a lot more grounded than other Frank Miller stuff has become since then. And I think that, him pulling himself back a little bit makes this book just so relatable and such a great read. So if you haven't read Batman Year One, it's issues 404 through 407. You can get them. They're not super expensive, but they cost money. I was lucky enough to get these at actually a pretty great price, but I won't go into that. I don't want to make anyone jealous. Anyway, so that's Year One, issues 404 through 407. Next, we have issue 408, and this is where basically we are kicking off the post-crisis DCU in terms of Batman. With this issue, you get the reintroduction of Jason Todd, who you see here. He is famously stealing the tires off of the Batmobile. Honestly, this cover showcases one of the biggest missteps they made in the DC New You of 1987, which is not Jason Todd being a punky little thief. It's not the fact that he's stealing tires. It's the fact that they decided to rename Batman The New Adventures. What? One of the stupidest ideas ever, but luckily it didn't stick with it for very long. But you will see that on the cover here, continuing forward for just a little bit. So anyway, here's basically the first modern age appearance of Jason Todd, and his story is basically that he's a criminal, and Batman kind of takes him under his wing, but not right away. He first leaves him with, basically at an orphanage, and he quickly discovers that the lady running that orphanage is a crime lord. So you got kind of like the Oliver Twist kind of thing going on. And by the end of 409, Batman decides he's going to take this kid in and raise him himself. Again, you've got Jason Todd, who's an orphan. And you really do, as much as people complained about Jason Todd at the time, you really do get a clear sense of, Batman is really, and the same thing is true here with Dick Grayson, but you really get a sense that Batman is trying to, right the wrong of his parents' death in a way that's beyond just putting on a costume and fighting people. It's, making, in some ways, having a Robin is, Batman's real success story, more so than fighting crime, because crime will always be there, but the fact that he is, helping an orphan overcome something that he could never overcome himself is really his greatest triumph. And the fact that he's done that basically, 3 times really, because Damien doesn't really count, because he's not an orphan, really speaks a lot to the strength of Batman as a character. Alright, so anyway, after he takes him in, you've got Two-Face entering the mix, because it becomes revealed that basically Two-Face is the responsible for the deaths of Robin's parents. So if you were wondering in Batman Forever where that came from, I really think of Chris O'Donnell as a Jason Todd character, partly because of that. Even though he has technically the Dick Grayson origin, he's annoying like Jason Todd can be annoying, and obviously Two-Face being such an integral part of his origin is very important as well. And so you have your first point in this story arc where Jason Todd is talking back. He's being that bratty kid that everybody hated back in the 80s. Batman tells him, stay put, don't do anything that I wouldn't do. And of course he instantly goes after Two-Face because he finds out that he's the one who killed his parents. And so you have the big culmination in that story arc with issue number 411. And it's interesting because even though Jason Todd, disobeys orders, goes after Two-Face anyway, he learns a valuable lesson about consequences and about, the folly of revenge. And he's really well on his way to becoming, a good, tried and true Robin at this point, because it wasn't until later that they really started purposely writing Jason Todd like a jerk. And we'll get to those issues when we get to those. But for now, Jason Todd is Robin, and he is well on the road to becoming a nice little kid. So anyway, that's where we're going to leave it off here for September 1st. We looked at Batman issues 411, 410, 409, 408, 407, 406, 405, and 404. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 1 of the modern age history of Batman. I will be back with issue 412 tomorrow. See y'all later.